Hello everybody and welcome to this video on the comparison between ReliableDR and VMware Site Recovery Manager. So in this video I'm just going to go through some basic things about DR, then look at the differences between the product sets themselves. So basically, why do we have these different applications? So why do we have things like ReliableDR and VMware Site Recovery Manager? Well, as the slide says, despite a lot of investment, DR testing is very, very costly. It takes a lot of time to do. It takes a lot of manpower, a lot of cost. But also, because of that, it tends to get done once a year, maybe twice a year, or if you're lucky, every quarter. Because it is literally just so complicated. Okay, things have got a lot easier since virtualization came into play. But even then, you've got to reconfigure virtual machines, you've got to be able to test them in isolated environments, or you've got to be able to shut down complete networks and bring DR sites up and make sure that everything works. Now, it's not just being able to test that everything is going to work, but when a disaster is encountered, how easy is it to get things back up and running? Now, this could be a single virtual machine, it could be a whole site. And as you can see from this services outages slide, it happens to a lot of the big companies. So, and even the smaller companies. So things like web applications, Zoho, GoDaddy, but even things like JPMorgan Chase's online banking systems. In the UK, we had a big issue with HSBC not being able to process payments. So it happens to everybody. And some of the big problems are that if you get corrupted data, it will actually replicate across to a DR site. So even when you do that failover, you may actually be coming up with the same bad data. So you end up having to roll back. So trying to recover from a backup tape or some sort of history. So service disruptions can be one of many different things. So this is actually a set of information provided by the Strategic Research Corporation. So hardware cooling and hardware failure only accounts for 44% out of everything. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, the biggest reason for having to invoke disaster recovery is because of a natural disaster, so weather, flooding, these sorts of things. Well, that's only 3% of the whole reason for failing over. So a lot of the other issues are things like human error, software error, and software error actually caused a lot of those issues that you saw before. So somebody had installed a bad patch, or something had got corrupted. Now, SRM only covers a certain portion of this area. ReliableDR itself will actually allow you to cover the whole section. So we're going to go through the differences and the reasons that you might use SRM or that you might use ReliableDR. So at PHD here, we're transforming recovery. So we've got two products. We've got what we call a virtual backup and we've got the ReliableDR product. So just so you can see, SRM basically sits within the DR testing area because that's all it is really. It's the ability to fail over either a pool or a complete site and test it. The issue there is if whatever you're failing over is corrupted, you then have a big issue. So the PHD virtual backup product, which we're not actually going to go into in this comparison, covers mainly sort of the data, the backup, the replication side of it. The key piece that we're looking at today is the DR assurance and the DR testing. So that's where the ReliableDR piece comes in. And that's where SRM tries to play. Now, SRM will do some replication. ReliableDR will do replication. So we'll look at those comparisons later on. So just introducing PHD's ReliableDR product. So to give you an idea of what it can do before we go any further. So it's DR for virtualized IT services. So it's actually designed for multi-tier complex applications. So we talk about the applications as opposed to virtual machines, because it's designed to be able to let you set, record and enforce things like RPOs for IT services, to be able to set SLAs and to be able to see these at a glance. Now, because you want to look at RTOs, SLAs, RPOs, etc., this needs to be automated. So the testing of all this needs to go on daily, weekly, hourly, whatever it may be. Whereas normally a DR test will be once a year, once a quarter. The whole idea of this is that you can test as often as you like. Because it's automated, you don't need to get involved. It helps reduce the cost. Now, we talk about testing there, but the key thing is, obviously, yeah, you've got to test it, but you need the ease of functionality when it comes to doing a failover or a fail back. So to be able to fail over to the DR site because you've lost whatever, but then to be able to roll back or fail back to your production networks is all really automated and at the push of a button. So it becomes very, very simple. Now, ReliableDR itself is agentless and it's non-disruptive to your production environments. We talk about applications, so we are application aware. So we have out-of-the-box tests for things like Exchange, SQL, Oracle, Apache, so web servers, etc. You can also add in your own tests into this. Now, it's a very, very flexible solution. So it's designed really to work with small environments, so it might be a single host to a single host, right up to huge multi-vCenter environments, including things like environments that include vCloud Director, so VMware's vCloud. We support Microsoft, we support Linux boxes. We also, as I said earlier, have our own replication, but we also support host-based replication, so our own, and storage-based replication. So if you've got NetApp, Datacore, EMC, IBM, etc. So you've invested that money in your storage arrays, use them. Let them do the work. Why do you want to duplicate the amount of replication that you're doing? So ReliableDR really is about protecting applications. So you have your applications at the primary site. Somehow they are replicated across to your secondary site. So either using ReliableDR's replication, you could use SRM to do the replication if you really wanted. You could use a third party. You could use your storage arrays. But then when it's over at the second site, we can test them. So we test it all inside what we call a sandbox, an isolated environment. So it's non-disruptive testing. And this could be for one application, it could be for a single VM, it could be for your whole environment if you want. But that then allows you to gauge your RPOs and your RTOs, so recovery point, recovery time objectives, and also to create what we call certified recovery points. So this is a snapshot in time that you can fail over to. So this actually would allow us to fail over a single VM if that's what you needed to do, or just a single application as opposed to an application pool or a complete site. Now, just so you see what ReliableDR looks like, this is the interface. So it's a web-based interface. It's got complete role-based administration, things like Active Directory integration for accounts. So for certain people, you could create them a view-only account, so all they can do is view their jobs, or you can have a full administrator's account. Now this is also built as a fully multi-tenanted environment. So if you're an MSP or a cloud service provider, or you have multiple organizations inside your enterprise, then you can all have your own environments and your own configurations using the same infrastructure. Something that just isn't really available with inside SRM. So there's actually a few use cases for ReliableDR. So to be able to guarantee and accelerate the recovery of all IT services. to be able to automate this. So these are all the things that we've just been talking about. So automating these exercises means you can run them every week, every month, whatever you need to do. You can use this as a DR as a service, because as I said, this could be a fully multi-tenanted environment. You can have multiple customers on here in their own secure environments. Because also with this, we can create a snapshot of your virtual environment and bring it up inside this isolated network. We can generate you a very easy test and dev environment, which can also be used for things like patch testing. So you now can generate everything very, very quickly and easily, and it's up to date. So, okay, this is the real slide. This is the key differences. So I'm going to go through some of the different things between SRM and ReliableDR. So the first thing is, ReliableDR looks at applications. So a CRM application, a database application, as opposed to a data center or a set of VMs, which is what SRM will do. We look at RTOs on applications, so your recovery time objectives. So how quick can you get that application up? We help you gauge these. So by continuously testing applications, we can say, continuously, we can get that application up. So that might be 10, 20, 30 VMs in a certain time. So we allow you to gauge how quick you can get that back. So you can go to the business and say, yeah, I can get my email services back up in 20 minutes. I can get my production web servers back up in 5 minutes, whatever it may be. We also look at and report and enforce RPOs on your applications. So your recovery point objectives. So because we can test these regularly and automated, we allow you to look at it and say, okay, I can say I'm going to test this every 4 hours. If I haven't got a good test in 8 hours, I want this to send an alert, so it'll do that for you. And the same on your recovery time objectives. And as I said, it's 100% automated DR testing. So with SRM, there's a lot of reconfigurations that need to happen. With ReliableDR, we can automate scripts. We have our own inbuilt tests. We can automate reconfiguration of IPs on machines. It all just becomes fully automated. You have a real-time web dashboard built into the product, as you've seen before. We have out-of-the-box testing scripts. So for things like Exchange, Active Directory, SQL. So we're not talking about just testing services. We're talking about, yes, the machine's up, yes, the service is up, but then being able to run a test script against something like a SQL database to make sure that that database is up and responding. And that's all built into the product. With SRM, you're going to have to go off and create all of these items. We cater for what we call non-logical disasters. So if you lose a single VM, you can fail that over, rather than losing a whole site or a whole data center. We can guarantee that recovery because we're constantly testing. We know that you could bring that application back up. So if there is a failure with an application, when we're doing the testing, it's going to alert you and let you know before you need to do that failover and find it is broken. We can deal with hybrid services. So if you need to incorporate physical devices into the product, that can be incorporated into it. We have zero footprint inside the virtual machines. So to install the product, you can just have a single server sat in the secondary site, so in the DR site. We don't need to have multiple management servers. We can just use the vCenters and the VIX interfaces and the VMware tools that are built into VMware's product set. You don't have to put out different backup agents, different agents within inside the VMs. You haven't got to deploy anything to the additional hosts. We can support mixed ESX versions. So if you've got version 4 on one side and 5 on the other, we can support that. We also support storage arrays. So we have our own inbuilt replication, but we can also use the storage arrays, so things like NetApp, DataCore, EMC. Now, we use what we call storage adapters, and these are developed by ourselves. So it's not developed by the hardware maintenance people, it's not developed by VMware. We build them ourselves in conjunction with NetApp, DataCore, etc. So just to have a look at a couple of case studies. This is a very large insurance firm, and I'm not going to go through everything that's on the slide, but the big problem they had was they had SRM in place. It was proving very, very difficult to keep it set up and to keep it managed. They needed a large team. But also, when they tried to do a test, a DR test with SRM, it was very, very difficult and a very manual process. They basically put ReliableDR in, tried it, and automated the whole process. And now they've actually removed SRM. So when they first put it in, they let SRM do the replication, and then ReliableDR did the testing. And they went, okay, well, it does that piece. Now let's let it do the replication as well. So if you've got SRM now, you haven't got to go and rip it out. We can coexist with it. Another large insurance firm, and to be honest, obviously both of these are insurance firms because they have some very large drivers to do with RPO, RTO, compliance, and a lot of needs to be able to make sure that an application is up and running, and that if they do have an issue that they can get that back up and running very, very quickly, because that's the core of their business. Without their insurance applications, they can't make money. So, I mean, we've got lots of other industries that use this, but these are just some of the key case studies that we have here. So, as this says, their main problem was their existing manual DR plan was too complicated, time-consuming, and for their exchange, they wanted a recovery point of 2 hours. With ReliableDR, it meant that we could automate everything they had, including things like being able to go off and reconfigure VLANs, to do flushes on DNSs, a whole host of different things. That was all put into the product. So we helped them over their issues that they had. So why people are choosing ReliableDR? Well, it will give you a varying range of solutions. So if all you need is just to make sure that a VM can fail over, we can do that, same as SRM will do. If you need to do a full application testing scenario, so make sure Exchange comes up, go in and check the databases or Oracle or SQL, whatever it may be, we can cater to that level as well. And these can be mixed. So you have a granular approach to application level recovery. It's very easy to install, as I've said, so within a couple of hours you can have this installed, configured, and up and running. So the install process actually takes about 15 minutes. But the whole idea is this is fully automated, so once you've got it set up, it's fire and forget. You just leave it. If there is a problem, it will tell you. So it'll send you a notification. But it also has a full multi-tenanted dashboard and environment. So if you need to, you can have totally separate organizations. And it just has a much lower cost of ownership because once it's in, you don't need to keep managing it and you don't need to make constant changes to it. And then when it comes to your DR test, it's not going to take you days and days and multiple manpower to do because it's all done anyway. And if you want to, you could just do a failover and move from one data center to another with your complete infrastructure. So if you want to find out a little bit more, we do have some white papers on the differences between ReliableDR and SRM. So if you do feel you want to download a trial version of ReliableDR, then please just go to www.phdvirtual.com and you can download the product from there. So thank you very much, everybody. I'll speak to you again.